Alright everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for another strange and bizarre cases compilation. In these videos, I always take the cases that I find that are really too short to be their own video but are definitely worth talking about and compile them all into one long video at the beginning of each month. So, let's get right into it. Here we've got, man gets 100 years for accidentally killing his 8-year-old daughter while trying to shoot his 18-year-old son. So here we have the story of Tony Louis Valles, a 66-year-old man living with his wife, son, and daughter. By all recent accounts, Tony was a bit of a hothead who would lose his cool over things that would often seem trivial to those around him. Sometimes it seems he even got a little bit delusional as well. On July 10th, 2022, he flew into one of those fits of rage. It seems that he believed 2 women had come into his house to evict him for one reason or another. This caused him to grab a gun from his bedroom and start shooting wildly. For some reason, he decided to shoot at his family rather than the 2 women he thought were in the house. He shot his girlfriend, Heather, until she fell to the ground. Then he decided he would kill his 18-year-old son as well. The problem is, he missed. His 8-year-old daughter, Ariana, was hiding at the top of the stairs, trying to get away from the gunfire as a bullet missed her brother and hit her in the back. She fell off of the landing at the top of the stairs, causing even further injury. She was rushed to the hospital, but she was soon pronounced dead. Tony was very quickly arrested. He was charged with 1 count of deliberate homicide, 2 counts of attempted deliberate homicide, and 1 count of criminal endangerment. Heather somehow survived, only coming to find later that her daughter had not. This September, Tony finally went on to plead guilty to 1 count of deliberate homicide. It wasn't long before the Lewis and Clark District Court judge, Mike Minahan, told him what his sentence would be. Tony and his attorney had originally asked for a 40-year sentence, but that wasn't happening. The district attorney recommended more than double that, 100 years. The judge found this number much more fitting. The police department sergeant said, from the witness stand, he felt justified in trying to shoot his partner and son. I don't think he initially realized he had shot Ariana. The judge said, I just can't believe being evicted would justify picking up a handgun in that small of a space with children present. He engaged in dangerous behavior that put everyone's life at risk and intended to bring harm to the adults present. Tony has since apologized for his actions. He will be eligible for parole eventually, but he'll be a 91-year-old man by then. He said, I'm sorry for all of this. I can't undo what I've done. The pain and misery will last a lifetime, and I'm sorry for that. And now, priest kills and decapitates his wife in front of their terrified daughter. Mikhail Zubarev is a Russian man from the Arctic region of Murmansk. When he became an adult, he decided to give his life over to God and become a priest. He graduated from the Moscow Orthodox Theological Seminary in 2010 and started working as a prison priest at first. From then on, he began working as a normal priest in a regular old church. Recently, parishioners at the church began to complain about the priest's behavior, which they called odd. After this continued for a while, the Russian Orthodox Church decided to suspend him for the time being. It seems that Mikhail didn't take this too well. In fact, he absolutely lost his mind. On Halloween night, he grabbed his wife, Victoria, in front of his 8-year-old daughter. He slashed the wife across her neck while his daughter watched in terror. And after the deed was done, he began to cut the body into pieces. Afterwards, still completely covered in blood, he pulled his daughter over and invited her to pray with him. Once the prayer session concluded, the horrified child went to the phone and urged her older brother, who was 17, to come home immediately. Sensing the urgency, he came over as quickly as he could. While the next details of the case are a bit murky, the police got involved, finding Victoria's head in the freezer of the home. It was clear that both of the kids were traumatized, with the son even asking the police if her head could be reattached to her body in the hospital. Mikhail was quickly arrested and taken into custody. His son and daughter were hospitalized and soon began receiving psychological help. A statement by Mikhail's church simply read, Currently, the banned priest, Mikhail Zubarev, is in custody. Law enforcement agencies are conducting an investigation. The church leader, upon receiving the news, expressed his condolences to Victoria's family and expressed his intention to pray for the 2 kids from then on out. Mikhail, if convicted, which seems like a sure thing, is facing a life sentence in prison for murder. And now, Man accused of living with dead body for months spent victim's money on Amazon. 29-year-old Beverly Ma was living in one of her parents' properties out in Las Vegas with her roommate, 31-year-old George Bone. In May, the police got a call from Beverly's phone. In that call, they could hear nothing but a man and a woman screaming at each other. They responded that very day, knocking on the door to the home, but they didn't receive an answer. They didn't see or even hear anyone in distress, so they just left. Beverly's family started getting concerned when the energy bill for the home suddenly got very high enough to be suspicious that something was going on. They tried to call their daughter, but couldn't get through to her. In July, the police eventually got a call from a family member of George's. He had told this family member, in his words, Beverly was in the closet and had been there for 2 months. Upon hearing that, the police came out to do a welfare check on the home. Still on the phone, the dispatcher attempted to talk to George as he casually brushed his teeth. They asked him what had happened. He said, "My roommate ended her life and I found her. Her body was in the closet." He added that she had died sometime back in May, likely the day that the police had originally been called. The police came out to the home and they found Beverly right there in the closet, exactly like George said they would. The house was disgusting, with a rank smell unlike any other. George had placed several fly traps around the house to deal with the bugs that were showing up. They also noticed a massive pile of Amazon boxes within the home. The police said, Bone went about living at the house with Beverly deceased in the upstairs closet for the next 2 months and began ordering several items on Beverly's Amazon account using her funds for his own gain. When asked why he didn't call for help, Bone's response was, "I was afraid of going back to jail for being found with a dead body." They added, Bone admitted that his behavior since the death of Beverly Ma was not normal. When asked why he placed a cooler in the master bedroom near the closet, Bone stated that he put it there so that he would be alerted if Beverly rose from the dead like in the movie The Grudge. George's mental state was definitely called into question when it was noted that someone had been using Beverly's phone that month. They had been telling people that she wouldn't be attending any July 4th parties because she, quote, wanted to be sober, not travel, and not be around people, the police said. The police quickly came to notice that Beverly had not ended her own life. They found a hole in her skull that they believed to have come from a hammer that they found on a table nearby covered in blood. George was quickly arrested for the killing of his roommate and living with her body for months. Just recently, George was finally indicted on 1 charge of murder and 3 theft-related charges. He had racked up over $10,000 on Amazon purchases across 171 different items. It was found that the initial high electric bill that led to the original suspicions was due to George keeping her home at a cold temperature in order to slow down decomposition. Despite George's bizarre demeanor, it was ruled that he was competent to stand trial. As of now, he remains in jail with no bail set. And here we have Florida man accused of locking teen in tiny makeshift jail and beating him with belt. This is a very strange story about a Florida man that starts off with, of all people, a contractor contacting the police. This contractor had been hired by a man named Timothy Ferreter back in 2021 in order to build an office in his garage, or at least what he called an office. Once he finished the job, he couldn't help but shake the feeling that something really strange was going on here. Relevant documents state about the room built in the garage. This room was built as an 8-foot by 8-foot space in the garage with its own ceiling and door. The worker further advised the door had added a bolt lock and knob only on the outside. No knob inside, so if someone were inside the office, they would not be able to exit until someone opened the door for them from the outside. The worker states he was also instructed to build this space with electricity and install a window air conditioning unit as well as a camera in the ceiling. The door was open and had a doorknob and a deadbolt, both locking from the exterior of the room. To the left of the door was a light switch also on the exterior of the room. Inside of the room to the right was a small plain box spring, and on top of that a mattress with a gray sheet and pillow. Straight in the room was a small dark-colored desk with school books and small children's books along with a foldable chair. Above the bed in the room was a black Ring brand camera. It should be noted that the room was a small plain white structure with no paint or color on the walls and appeared to be drywall. The floor was a bare garage floor with part of an indoor-outdoor rug covering it. Suspicions came to an all-time high when Timothy's 14-year-old son was reported missing on January 28th. 2 days after that, the police paid a visit to Timothy's home in order to find out whether or not the boy had returned home. Once they got there, they noticed the family seemed very reluctant to let the officers inside. But after a long conversation, they relented with a grudge, allowing the police to take a look around. Finding nothing in the house, one officer decided to give the garage a quick look before heading out. However, in this garage, he came across the strange structure within. The family panicked, telling the officer that the room was nothing but an office. When that didn't check out, they said it was a storage area. Eventually, they said the room was used by all of their children, but it wasn't clear what they meant by that. The next day, officers with the Jupiter Police Department showed up at the boy's school after there was a report that he was on campus. They found him running outside near the front of the school. Upon calming the boy down, he opened up to the officers a little bit about his home life. He said that he would often remain locked in his room, let out to use only the restroom, and then led back into his room to be locked in again. The lights would then be turned off. After, he would be allowed to leave in order to go to school, but once he got home from school, he would be placed back into this room again. He was not allowed to go anywhere else in the house. He remained there in the dark at all times. The officers asked him why he originally ran away, to which he stated that he no longer felt safe at his home as the family would get really aggressive with him, noting that he had been slammed up against walls, hit with a belt, and even spit on. Sometimes he wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom, having to use a bucket instead. He asked the officers if they could take him to jail rather than send him back home. Police returned to the home, investigating the odd structure. There they found several Ring camera videos had been recorded. They showed Timothy yelling at his son, throwing his mattress around, grabbing him, and forcing him to empty his bucket. Both he and his wife Tracy were arrested and thrown into jail. They were to each have their own separate trials, as Timothy's lawyer worried about all of the inconsistent statements that Tracy had been giving. Timothy turned down a plea deal he was offered, one that would give him 2 years in prison and 5 years probation. Instead, he entered a not guilty claim. His lawyers claimed that his son was suffering from reactive attachment disorder and was both aggressive and dangerous. Timothy and Tracy were both bonded out of jail soon after. Timothy was looking at charges of aggravated child abuse, false imprisonment, and neglect of a child. Once his trial came around, the jury listened to a whole week of testimony. The most damning evidence against him was the video recordings. He came to hear that he was guilty on all 3 counts. He stared straight ahead while his wife broke down into tears. He was soon fingerprinted and handcuffed. His sentencing hasn't been set, but he's likely looking at 40 years in prison. While being prepped to head off to jail, his wife mouthed, "I love you," to him. She is soon going to face her own trial as well. This one is a doozy. Police drag autistic girl out of her house because she said officer looked like lesbian grandmother. On Monday, August 7th, in Leeds in the UK, the police started getting calls that a 16-year-old girl was putting herself in danger during an event. She was reportedly getting pretty drunk, despite being only 16 years old. She was attending a gay pride celebration with her sister. 2 officers arrived on scene at about 1 a.m. and took the girl home to be with her mother. The girl, an autistic teenager who also had spinal disability scoliosis, was taken out to her home. This was when she made a comment to a female police officer, telling her, "You look like my lesbian nan." This officer then, apparently, lost her cool. This female officer, with short blonde hair, then stated, "She's going to be arrested." The mother argued that she had made a comment in her own home and didn't do anything to hurt the woman. She told her that her daughter was autistic. The officer responded, "I don't care." A male officer nearby then said that the daughter made homophobic remarks towards his colleague. The mother tried to explain that she didn't mean it as an insult and was simply saying that the woman reminded her of her nana. The officer still did not care. The officer made her way into the home to grab the daughter. The daughter then started to panic, and it only got worse as the police manhandled her and tried to get her out of the home. Her mom couldn't believe what was happening and began to film a video that she would later upload to TikTok. She went on to caption the video with, "This is what police do when dealing with autistic children. My daughter told me the police officer looked like her nana, who is a lesbian." The 2 police officers stood in the hallway of the home, trying to get the girl to come out as she nervously sat up in the corner against a cupboard. She was then heard screaming as the police tried to pull her out. This was all while the mother begged them to let her go. The cops pulled the girl outside. She fell to the sidewalk and multiple different officers approached to detain her. She was said to have been suffering pretty extreme pain from this due to her spinal issues. Apparently, their justification was that they were arresting her on suspicion of a homophobic public order defense. She then screamed as the cops took her away. Once the video gained traction and the police started getting some heat, a spokesman for the West Yorkshire Police asked people to, quote, avoid reaching conclusions solely on the basis of the social media video that only provides a very limited snapshot of the circumstances of this incident. They added that officers were wearing body cams that provided additional context and this would prove their innocence. But complaints still came in one after another. They argued that talking too much about this ongoing case could hurt their investigation, but said that the girl had an interview with an officer that day, an interview in which her mom was not allowed to attend. The girl was finally released on bail after spending a whole 20 hours locked up in a cell, but the police still then told her that she was going to be coming back for further inquiries. The police said, "We also maintain that our officers and staff should not have to face abuse while working to keep our communities safe." As the footage went viral, the mother of the girl made clear her intentions to seek legal advice as to what to do moving forward. Ultimately, the police decided that they would take no further action against the girl, likely due to the severe international backlash and awful PR they had received. A review into the arrest by the West Yorkshire Police's Professional Standards Directorate was launched. The police, responding to the review, stated, West Yorkshire Police take its responsibilities around the welfare of young people taken into custody and around neurodiversity very seriously. This one is, a mother sentenced to 7 years in prison for injecting feces into her son's IV. This is absolutely one of the weirdest cases lately, as it involves poop being injected directly into someone's bloodstream. It's kind of hard to top anything weirder than that. In Walcott, Indiana, a young boy was getting some cancer treatments at Riley Hospital for Children in Indianapolis. This was when his mother decided to take some feces and inject them right there into her son's IV. After getting his leukemia treatments, he was released from the hospital and went home. That was until he returned to the hospital just 2 days later with a fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. Blood tests showed that his bloodstream contained bacteria consistent with feces, something no medical test could explain. The staff were baffled. They figured that the only rational explanation there could be was that someone was tampering with his IV lines, and they were right. They set up cameras in the area to make sure, and they quickly caught his mother trying to do it again. When confronted, she told the staff that she was trying to, quote, flush it as the medicine that was given to him burned. When they pressed, she admitted that it was poop. It was her son's own poop that she claimed to have kept in a gift bag on the bathroom counter at home. Once she was caught and arrested, the mother, Tiffany Albert, said that this was a not-so-clever ruse in order to get her son moved from the intensive care unit into another unit in the hospital where she believed that the treatment would be better. She was originally charged with attempted murder, but was subsequently charged with aggravated battery and 1 count of neglect. She was convicted on those counts and sentenced to 7 years in prison. She will have to serve 5 years of probation following her sentence as well. Here we've got, homeowner fires at armed burglars pretending to be Seattle police. Just recently out near Seattle, some pretty odd CCTV footage came out showing a failed robbery on a man's house. 3 masked men pulled up to the Auburn home and climbed up onto the porch. They were quite clearly using their jackets and gloves to avoid knocking on the door directly. One man shouted out "Seattle Police" as they tried to get the homeowner to open the door. He did not. Another man in a gray hoodie and sweatpants then proceeded to try to kick the front door open. Another accomplice, dressed in all black, then started to help him. They couldn't get the door to open in this manner, though, so they decided to start shoulder barging the thing open. But then they heard a loud pop. A gunshot had just come from inside the house. For reasons unknown, this didn't deter the 3 men at all whatsoever. One of the men then took his turn trying to knock the door open again. Giving up, he pulled out a gun and aimed it at the front door, but then hellfire unleashed. The man inside the home, left with no more options upon seeing the gun, fired an entire volley of bullets from the inside of the home toward the 3 men. One bullet passed only a mere inch from one of the suspect's faces, causing him to fall backwards in shock. The 3 men then scrambled away, fleeing from the scene. The problem is, the Auburn police still have no idea who these 3 men were. They're turning to the public to request any information that might lead to the discovery of the identities of any of these 3 men. Be sure to hit them up if you have any leads. This case is actually very reminiscent of another. That case would be Man shoots through door at burglars posing as maintenance workers. This time, rather than on a regular security camera, a failed robbery attempt was caught on a Ring doorbell cam out in Dallas, Texas. This was when a man named Aaron Contreras, along with another, came up to the apartment of Ethan Rodriguez and knocked on the door. He claimed to be a maintenance worker for the building, there to check on the filters of the air conditioner. Ethan, who was inside the home, answered back through his Ring app and told them that nobody was home. For a minute it seemed like the two men were going to leave, but they soon came back, this time with a handgun. They began to attempt to kick the door open while Aaron waved his gun around. Little did they know, Ethan was inside the home after all, and he was packing some heat of his own. He opened fire from the inside of the apartment, shooting through the front door of the place. The two men then immediately jerked back from the door and started running. They had seen the bullet holes in the concrete behind them. Aaron then fired 2 shots in response before running off. Ethan had fired 13 shots in total. The two men were extremely lucky that they escaped unscathed. When the cops talked to Ethan, he told them he was very happy that his neighbors, as well as his own wife and baby, just happened to be out at the time. He added, "I was hoping I got him." That was mainly it, just hoping I got him. Ethan uploaded the video of the shootout and it quickly went viral. This led to Aaron's capture and arrest that very day. However, they still don't know the identity of the other man. Aaron's looking at charges of aggravated assault, deadly conduct, and attempted burglary of a Habitarian. He's being held at the Dallas County Jail on a $150,000 bond. It's very unlikely that he'll be able to pay it off. Ethan had one last message for Aaron himself as he sat away in jail. "You're dumb as fuck for not wearing a mask." This next one is, Kenya officials arrest fake lawyer who won 26 court cases. For probably the first time on this channel, we have an interesting case coming from out in Kenya. This is where a man posing as a lawyer got a lot of work and was apparently pretty good at his job. This is the story of Brian Mwenda. He decided that he was going to be a lawyer, but he was going to skip the whole certification process. That was a waste of time. He was jumping right in. So he stole the identity of a lawyer with a very similar name to his, Brian Mwenda Ntwiga. He even got into the whole system for the bar certification somehow. He fooled around with the details of the account a bit and replaced the photo with one of his own. Officials have stated, upon being allowed access to the account, he took control of the portal and changed his profile picture, the workplace, and applied and paid for the practicing certificate. However, his application was not processed since he was required to provide documents including the Certificate of Business Incorporation. Either way, Brian got a nice suit and took to the job fairly quickly. Over a short amount of time, he was able to win a whopping 26 cases on his own. It seems his customers were happy. But then, the legitimate lawyer whose identity he stole realized he could no longer log into his certification website. He tried using the forgot password option, but then he realized that the email associated with the account was no longer his own. So he called the IT department. This was the beginning of Brian's downfall. It was quickly found that Brian was not Brian, and all hell broke loose. He was arrested by the Kenyan police and taken into custody. Unfortunately, he won't be able to represent himself in court. The official account for the Nairobi branch of the Law Society of Kenya wrote on Twitter, "The branch wishes to notify all members of the society and of the public that Brian Mwenda Njagi is not an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. From the society's records, neither is he a member of the branch." Right now, Brian is being held by the authorities pending further investigation. Judges have noted that they never once saw any reason to doubt his abilities until he was arrested. It seems he was a very good fake lawyer in the end. And on this one, I'm going to have to censor my language just a little bit. Chess Grandmaster Hans Niemann denies using booty beads to win. Here we have a Grandmaster of chess named Hans Niemann who was hit with some accusations that are very weird to say the least. In 2022, he was accused by a fellow player named Magnus Carlsen of cheating. Word began to spread that Hans had been cheating in his matches by using vibrating keister capsules operated by a remote to win his games. It was believed that he was receiving signals from them to tell him which moves he should make. It's unclear where these specific accusations came from, but they've been spreading for about a year. Hans and Magnus had been in a bit of a feud since September of 2022, when Hans beat Magnus in a match in St. Louis. This loss broke Magnus's 53-game-long winning streak, causing him to drop out of a tournament he was going to attend. Hans quickly came out to deny using shivering sphincter spheres to beat his opponents. He even showed up on Piers Morgan Uncensored in order to refute the claims. When asked if he had used a rectum rosary while playing, he told the host, "I can tell you, no. Categorically, no. There's absolutely no evidence that I've ever cheated. It's very disheartening to be accused of cheating after that victory. These things happen, and I managed to learn a lot during that time, and it really taught me a lot of very important lessons about life and chess." Hans filed a lawsuit against Magnus, as well as some other people involved, claiming that he had been defamed and that they were working together to blacklist him from what is both his passion and profession. He took to Twitter to show legal documents, writing, "My lawsuit speaks for itself." Unfortunately, it seems that his $100 million defamation case was dismissed by a judge in June of 2023. Lawyers representing Chess.com told media, "We are very pleased with the court's order dismissing Hans Niemann's claims. Our clients are happy to see an end to this saga and are pleased that all parties can now focus on growing the game of chess." Once again everyone, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it helps me out in the algorithm, and hey, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media, it's the only way you'll really ever hear from me if something happens to this channel. Again. If you want to support the channel even further, I do have a Patreon account which I always keep linked down in the description as well. This has been your host Kyle, thank you, and good night.